Hi everyone. My name is Hugh Gray, and if you can't hear me, just tell me to talk louder. So, you guys can hear me okay? Okay. So as Kelly said, my name is Hugh Gray, and Instagram is kind of like the second chapter of my career right now. I consider myself an influencer as well as a content creator focused on the food, style, and travel vertical. But before that, I was a senior writer-producer at CNN for over a decade. And the shows that I worked on include Larry King Live. Are you guys old enough to remember Larry King Live? And most recently, the launch campaigns for Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. And so part of, not only am I an influencer, I also am a filmmaker. And so I just wanted to start off by showing you guys a couple projects that I'm working on. And so the first one is called Quan 13. So it's a documentary, it's a food documentary about the Vietnamese diaspora in Paris told through the lens of food. And so this is just the trailer for it. So.
I was dreaming of a sunny day, a romantic place where the bombs are falling. I was dreaming of the earth was red, smoke above our heads, all the things I've read. I was dreaming of a dusty street where you carried me to the market daily. Past the colors of the season's fruits, now your seeds have all grown. All I know is you're a language I can't understand. All I know is you're a photograph of mother's hands. All I know is you're a face I've seen from far away. All I know is you're a river running through my veins. All I know is you're a memory of father's name. All I know is you're a face I've seen from far away. I was flying with a silver crane in the summer rain through the fields that feed us. I was drifting out to the sea, carrying with me just another dream. I was sitting at a small cafe in an alleyway on Cathedral Sunday. All the memories in monochrome of the place you called home. All I know is you're a language I can't understand. All I know is you're a photograph of mother's hands. All I know is you're a face I've seen from far away. All I know is you're a language I can't understand. All I know is you're a photograph of mother's hand. All I know is you're a face I've seen from far away.
So that's a documentary that I'm working on, and this song was made specially for the film, and the composer is also a Vietnamese American, so that's really special. And then the other thing that I work on is a food and a travel host. And so I do this series called Stylishly Delicious on my Instagram, and I recently just shot in Hawaii, and this is the trailer for that series.
It's holding up, it keeps you and me intertwined. What's a pipe dream if you ain't trying to do it? What's a heartbreak if you ain't crying, I'll do it. What's a sunset if you ain't riding into it? Let's drive into feeling that won't disappear, and you're bringing me back to life. I was looking for something that I couldn't find. It's a feeling you give me inside. 'Cause I'm bringing you back to life.
Yeah. So those are like the two projects that I'm currently working on, and so they have a very different range of spectrum from the documentary as well as to the series. And so for this presentation, we're going to focus on Instagram. And so it's going to be divided into 3 sections. First, I'm going to teach you how to learn how to create the perfect pose. And then since a lot of you are journalism students, how many are like 4th year or about to graduate? Okay. So the second part will be about career advice, about getting your foot in the door and kind of getting your first job. And then we'll have a Q&A for the last section. Okay. So what makes the perfect pose? And so the anatomy of a pose is compelling photo plus a compelling caption equals Instagram gold. And so this is an example from the LA Times, and it uses this beautiful golden hour surf photo, and the caption is, "This is why they call it the golden hour." And so I think that's the perfect example of a compelling photo with a compelling caption. And then this is another example that I think is good, and it's also from the LA Times, and it's a photo from Sap Coffee Shop. And the caption is, "Since these hashtag noodles at hashtag Sap Coffee Shop are green, at Jen Harris technically ate a big bowl of greens for dinner last night," right? And so there's no hard or fast rules when it comes to doing captions. They can be as long or as short as they need. And the tone should reflect your personality or the news organization. And that's kind of like a catch-22, right? Because at a news organization, you kind of want to fit in, but you also want to stand out. And so it's just about finding that perfect balance between the voice of the media outlet as well as kind of letting your own personality try to shine through. And also using effective hashtags, being specific, being local, and being unique. And then the other point is, what is your point of view? And I think that's something that really helps separate people who are good at Instagram versus people who just post photos. And so your POV, your point of view, is going to definitely influence your shooting style and your writing style. Like, do you want a highly edited style or more raw in the moment perspective? So having a strong POV is going to set you apart from the crowd. And then example 1 is a case study. Has anyone heard of the Lily News? So it's this really cool project from the Washington Post, and it's focused more on female-driven stories. And so I think this is a great example of a media organization, Instagram. Like, the consistent is layout, and the color scheme is black with pops of color. So it has a really strong point of view being female empowerment. So I think you guys should really check that out. It's like a really good example of a media outlets that's doing Instagram well. And then the second one is a fashion from the fashion magazine WWD. And again, here you can see there's a consistent layout, and what helps them stand out with their posts is they also have posts that have quotes. And it's a strong point of view, it's showing behind the scenes photos, so it makes the audience feel like they are backstage at a fashion show. And then now I'm going to kind of go into camera basics for Instagram. So who here is a photographer or has studied photography? Okay, so a couple of you. So I'll go through these quickly because these are kind of basics, but so photography basics. So it's three things that you should think about when you take a photo on Instagram. The first one is composition, and then lighting and backgrounds. And then of course there's the rule of thirds. So whenever you take a picture, you kind of want to envision having these two horizontal lines across and two vertical lines. And so wherever the lines cross are kind of like the bull's eyes, and so that's kind of like where the eyes are drawn to. And then yeah, so those are like the photography basics. Some takeaways. The point of interest should fall where those bullseyes are, and try to shoot the subject either to the left or the right instead of the center for more interesting shots. And there's an option on your mobile phone to use the grid to get it. And then I personally love to shoot in natural light, like that's the best light to shoot in. And these are just some of my food photography shots, and I hope it makes you guys hungry a little bit. And then these are just some positions for shooting in natural light. Of course, number one is to avoid direct sunlight. The second one, shooting it from the side. And today, being a cloudy day, would be the best day to shoot, because you're not getting any harsh shadows from the sun. And then the other thing is finding backgrounds. You can almost make any opportunity to shoot something really cool. Looking for signs, even the floor or even the wall would work. So just some things to keep in mind when you take photos. And then I always edit my photography for social, and it's pretty quick, so I'm just gonna go through like a 3-step process that you can do right from the Instagram app. So the first one is just adjusting the brightness, the second is adjusting the contrast, and third is adjusting the structure. And then, so that was kind of the basics, and now we're going to go into the career advice, and I would love to make this more interactive, and if you guys have any questions. So getting your foot in the door. So I think social media has completely eliminated the gatekeepers, and I can attest to that because and this was kind of how Kelly found out about me, was through Instagram, just DMing me and asking me to come, so it definitely works. And so you should just follow the organizations you want to work for, engage with them, and that's how you can get noticed. And also joining professional networks. When I was in college as a senior, I joined the AAJA, which is the Asian American Journalists Association. And when I was a senior, I won their local scholarship because I was kind of the only one who applied. And so and with a lot of these organizations, when they have scholarships, not a lot of people apply, and that's one way of getting noticed is just applying. And so from that, from winning that scholarship, I was able to network with the professionals who were in that organization, and I was able to get an internship at CNN my senior year of college. And then from there, I was able to transition that into getting a entry-level position after I graduated. And I definitely feel you should treat your Instagram profile as a resume. Like, who now is kind of doing that, or is your Instagram just for fun? Just for fun? So I highly recommend everyone just doing like a social media audit of their Facebook and especially of their Instagram, and making sure that this is what you want recruiters to see when they click on your profile. And then the other thing I do want to stress is, even though you guys are now kind of just in the beginning stages of your journalism career, like, it's very important to brand yourself. Even though that sounds kind of, I guess it sounds kind of cheesy, like, oh, this is my brand, or this isn't on brand. But yeah, I think having a brand of who you are, like creating your own unique hashtag, like my hashtag is stylishly delicious. And also to be consistent with your layout. Like, do you want highly edited photos, or do you want to just be in the moment? Is there a color palette that you want to stick to? And the last thing is to develop your own voice and point of view. And again, this comes through as the pictures that you pick and the style that you choose to shoot it. And so that doesn't necessarily mean just, that can also include writing captions and putting it in your voice. And then these, I listed some of the other Instagram apps that I personally like to use, like Vesco. Has anyone heard of Vesco? Yeah. So that's like one of my favorite editing apps. And the other one is from Google, Snapseed. Has anyone heard of that as well? Yeah, that's a really good one. And then for scheduling posts, I like to use Later. And then the last thing I have is Canva. Has anyone heard of Canva? And so that's kind of, I made this presentation on Canva and I absolutely love it, and it's free and it makes everything look professional. It's pretty much a template and you just put in your photos and it makes it look great. And yeah, so now I guess we can open it up to Q&A. And again, I want to thank Kelly for having me here. So.
Because I think what's pretty monumental is that you obviously came up with this idea, you knew what you're passionate about, started your account with 168 followers, and within 4 months grew it to over 12,000. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would say that's successful. How does that happen?
How
did that happen for you?
Well, let me go ahead and pull up my Instagram too, so that you guys can see it. Oh, it's not connected. Okay, never mind. Is there a Wi-Fi password here? No? No? Because I want to pull up my Instagram page.
Here, let me try. I'll probably guess. It's just gonna be a little tedious. Accept the terms. Why?
Kelly, signing to secure Mustang Wireless on your account.
Do Mustang Wireless?
Secure Mustang.
I don't know.
You have to go to Wi-Fi setup, and then it'll take you to the page.
No, on that screen, then type in your password.
In here?
Yeah.
We can pick it up all the way over here. Why? Okay, I think it's gonna work. Please.
Oh, okay. Good. So just so. So I guess, so I'll just show you guys like my Instagram page and then walk through certain things that I've done to make it stand out. And so it's always good to put your name, obviously, but also put your unique hashtag. And so mine are stylishly delicious, and also kind of a locator. Like I'm based in LA, and so that hashtag is LA Foodie. And I also have a second one that I'm working on called Think Outside the Square, because I'm using this grid format called a puzzle, and so it doesn't stick to the traditional square. Yes?
What is the demographic you get?
I-
Like, your followers?
My demographic is 60% female, 40% male, based mostly in California, age 24 to 34 range. So.
Do you do anything to expand that, or?
Well, in terms of expanding, I kind of try to, when I travel, I use, yeah. So I guess, so I'll just show you guys like my Instagram page and then walk through certain things that I've done to make it stand out. And so it's always good to put your name, obviously, but also put your unique hashtag. And so mine are stylishly delicious, and also kind of a locator. Like I'm based in LA, and so that hashtag is LA Foodie. And I also have a second one that I'm working on called Think Outside the Square, because I'm using this grid format called a puzzle, and so it doesn't stick to the traditional square. Yes?
What is the demographic you get?
I-
Like, your followers?
My demographic is 60% female, 40% male, based mostly in California, age 24 to 34 range. So.
Do you do anything to expand that, or?
Well, in terms of expanding, I kind of try to, when I travel, I use a lot of hashtags. So hashtags are kind of the key to growth, is finding those sweet hashtags that are unique to you, and those are what help get eyeballs to your Instagram page. And for example, the LA Foodie is something that people can click on, and most of the time, a lot of my photos will appear on the top, but not today. So for example, like because we're here, then you would try to find hashtags that are local to your city, pretty much. So hashtags, try to use more local as possible, as opposed to like a generic like hashtag pasta or hashtag foodie, because those are so big that it's not effective at all. And then I also kind of list like a mini bio, and this kind of goes back into saying how your Instagram should be like your resume. I list down that I'm a creative director as well as an executive producer, and that I was a CNN producer. And then for the section where you can put a link, and so for this, I chose to link to an article that was written about me. And I think this is more effective than just listing your website, because I'm surprised at the number of people who read this article. So if you have an article that you've written or is written about you, then that would be the link place is a great place to put that article, because people will read that article more than just it's more effective than just looking at your website, because that article tells a story about you and tells more about you than just a website. And then these highlight icons are also something that helps my page stand out. And so these were made especially for me. I had a graphic designer design these for me. And then this is kind of, again, the look of my Instagram feed. Like, it definitely stands out. You won't see a lot of puzzle type grids because these are very hard to create. Because in order for the grid or the puzzle to stay together, you have to post 3 photos at once as opposed to just posting 1 a day.
How do you use this platform, for storytelling?
For storytelling, I think Instagram is more of a visual storytelling tool. And so I think, example would be, let's just click on this one. And by itself, you can't really, it doesn't really make sense, right? But then when you read the caption, it says, from a slice of pizza to, I always like to keep you guys guessing. And so that kind of makes it build suspense and wanting people to stick around to see what the next post is going to be. So I definitely use Instagram as a very visual medium. And I started this format this year, but before that, it was pretty much a usual square grid. And so these are, for an example for this, I did a travel series in Japan, and so instead of using YouTube to post my videos, I posted on Instagram, just because that's where my audience is. And of course, stories is a whole nother topic that we can talk about. And for me, I like to use templates for my Insta stories, and just to make it stand out a little bit more. But for stories, it's definitely a place where I feel my personality comes out a little bit more, and that's where you can show more behind the scenes of how a photo came together.
Do you make money from this account?
That is the goal. Right now, I'm getting a lot of media invitations, as well as a lot of, because most of mine is based on food and travel, so I get tons of invitations to eat at restaurants, to review products, and I use it as a place to put my travel videos, because that's kind of the next evolution of my career. So. Oh, yes.
Sorry. For your travel videos, what's kind of the process? You said a little bit, but it's do you do your own research and kind of where you want to shoot, where you want to go, people reach out to you, or is it kind of a mix of both?
So for the documentary Quant 13, a lot of my research, I did it on Instagram. There was one subject that I was just scrolling through my Insta stories one day, and then one of my followers, I looked at their Insta story, and I was like, hey, this guy looks really interesting. So I do use Instagram for research. So that kind of gives you a excuse to scroll for hours on Instagram. It really does help with doing research and getting sources.
How frequently do you post on Instagram?
Well, I post because I'm doing a grid format, and so I post on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I post 3 squares simultaneously. So, but for regular postings, I would say post every other day as opposed to every day. So.
So Kelly asked about like if you make money off of this, but I know this is more of almost like a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you turn something like this into something that you could monetize or something that you could pitch to clients?
Okay. So again, like I was saying, like this should be your resume. And so when you're wanting to pitch to clients, then you should show them your Instagram profile. And it's kind of like a proof of performance of this is the type of things I can do. And just imagine if you hired me, I can do this too.
So for example, like if I had a page like this and it was laid out and it looks all nice,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have maybe the same numbers that you have,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any advice about like how you would be able to pitch that to a client?
I think a lot of people pay too much attention to follower counts. For me, I always feel that quality will always trump quantity. So I think I really don't think you should focus on how many numbers. I really think you should just focus on the quality, the photography of how your Instagram post looks. Yes.
So what made you make the jump from working for CNN and things like that to being a food Instagram?
So it's kind of because how many people are here? Are you in broadcast or?
PR.
Oh, in PR. Oh. But how many people are in broadcast? So I'm going to tell you right now, broadcast is kind of dying. And so, and so for me, I kind of had to, and as a working journalist, that's kind of hard to hear because I spent a decade in broadcast. But when you're going out for interviews, the companies that you interview at are going to also ask about your social media experience and what do you do there, because you definitely want to be more well-rounded. And so for me, coming from broadcast, and like a year ago, I knew nothing about Instagram. And so it was kind of like a crash course for me to kind of prove to myself, I'm older than I look. And so I'm not I'm a one-trick pony, or a dog can learn. But I guess the point that I'm making is I did my Instagram almost as an experiment to see if I could transition into a new medium. And I would say I'm doing okay. So that for me is because you have to, as a journalist and as someone who wants to go into PR as well as journalism, like social media and digital is where media is going now. So, yeah.
I'll ask another question.
Oh, okay, sure.
So I have a food Instagram.
Okay.
And I had a hard time keeping up with it, feeling like I was just doing something that everyone else was doing. So how did you come up with new ideas and stay creative and stay encouraged and motivated to keep doing it even though so many people are doing it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And coming from LA, the market there is saturated with food Instagrammers, and it's pretty competitive, and everyone follows everyone, so we all know where they're going to eat and what they're doing. And for me, how I separate myself is not only doing this different layout that no one else is doing. I've started doing monthly photo shoots now, where I kind of combine food and style, because those are my two passions is food and style. And so for February, it was Lunar New Year, and so I decided to do a life-size flat lay of myself surrounded by food. And then for the new year, I did another photo shoot where I am kind of like celebrating 2019. And so that, for me, that's what makes me stand out, is professional, highly edited photos, as well as the food styling. I'm not just taking pictures of food. So I think it's to stand out in food Instagramming is taking food and applying it with another passion instead of just food. So.
I just have to ask this question because I think a lot of, and maybe this generation, maybe you guys can speak more to this, but are we burned out on social media? I track my time on my phone on how long I spend, and it's like scary sometimes, and I think about what else I could be doing, and I'm just wondering, broadcast, there's been a lot of changes in broadcast and now social media, and if this is, Instagram is only going to go for, I don't know, is it going to continue to live? Do you guys feel that way? Are you getting burned out on social?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Who's deleted their account? Anyone in here? How do you keep people around, stay fresh with people who maybe the younger generation is over it?
Well, for me, the way I try not to be burned out is I limit my intake to an hour and a half every day. Is that too much, or is that, or do people spend more time than that?
That's really great.
Okay. So I guess your question is, how do I keep people coming back to Instagram, or?
More the question is if this platform is no longer at its height, are you planning ahead? Are you moving more into the filmmaking? How do you sustain? Because I think a lot of, everyone here is just starting their career, and so they have to be thinking like, oh, am I going to become a social media storyteller? But what would be next for me?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I am thinking ahead. Like, Instagram is just one part of a bigger picture. Like, not only it includes Instagram, but it also includes the filmmaking, and eventually I want to have a YouTube page. Again, I'm like a dinosaur, so I'm going into each platform like little slowly. So I've started with Instagram, and then I'm going to do YouTube and a website. And at the end of the day, I think ultimately it should be your website that all of your social media's platforms should point back to, because that is what you can control, because that's yours. And and you should definitely think about diversifying, not just being on Instagram, not just being on YouTube. Always thinking ahead.
So would you want to sell a series to Netflix?
Yes, that is the plan. So, and already proving to them that I can build an audience, that I have an audience already built in, is even better for the pitch and everything. So,
What do you think is the most satisfying part of your career as an influencer?
I think the most satisfying part is I see it as this is being a creative outlet for me, and having other people embrace it. And I've met so many wonderful people on Instagram as well. So it's definitely the community and it being a place for my creative outlet.
Did you study broadcast? You studied poetry.
I studied journalism because that was kind of like the safe route, and also creative writing, focused on poetry. Because you would never make money off poetry. So.
Have
Well, I feel my background in terms of the production is definitely what I've taken from CNN, is that 10 years of experience of knowing how a video should look, knowing how to edit it, and the script writing. So that is what I've taken from CNN. So. And plus it's based in Atlanta and not really in Los Angeles, so most of the connections that I've made now, like in production, they've been more through Instagram as opposed to from CNN. So, yeah.
Do you shoot and edit also?
I can shoot and edit, but for these type of pieces, because I have so many projects going on, that it's just easier for me to outsource to freelancers. But yeah, I can edit and shoot.
How far do you plan, what I'm trying to say is, how far do you plan ahead for your content that you're going to post?
I plan a month ahead. So right now, for next month is March, and so I'm already planning a photo shoot for Mardi Gras that I'm going to shoot this weekend. So I plan a month and ahead. But that's a little extreme. Usually people plan maybe a week or 2 weeks ahead. So.
Do you already have like locations that you're going to visit?
Yes.
And do you reach out to those locations for possible reviews?
Yeah, I'm so for my travel videos, like I'm planning to go to Japan, hopefully at the end of March as well as in May. So I'm already planning ahead for those as well. So. And what type of content do you do?
I have like 4 different Instagram accounts, and they're all like different in a way. They cater to different niches of demographics that I'm trying to reach. And I'm not trying to like just really stick to one because I'm like being forced to stick to a certain lifestyle, but I keep it open to see not necessarily which one hits, but I'm like kind of waiting to graduate to like really know exactly what route I'm gonna go in.
Oh, I don't think you should wait to graduate at all. Like, I mean, really, the gatekeepers are gone. If you're, if you're great on social media now, like, start reaching out,
Well, I have different demographics that I can cater to. Like you said, find your style. My style doesn't really translate to like this school setting. It's like a little bit different. So
okay.
I don't want to really just submerge myself into one group of people. I'd rather be like up here.
What is it?
Well, I cater more to like the Chicano lifestyle, so that has like a different lifestyle which caters to like the business people, and then I have my personal thing which like I like to keep to myself and share with my friends and stuff like that, which kind of like shows who I became, and I don't know. And it's still up there in the air, so I'm not really sure which route I want to take, but I really don't want to be just forced to stick to one group.
So which one has gained the most traction so far?
Well, my personal one, if you know me, you might follow me, but the other ones are kind of like, I'm like behind the curtain. I haven't really like presented myself or to the world so you can see who's creating this content or who's creating these designs or whatever it is that I'm doing.
So like one thing that definitely separates different Instagrammers is the personality behind it. So you should definitely start putting yourself out there for those other accounts. So.
That I'm gonna imply.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks.
How did you get into filmmaking, and then what advice would you give to students who don't have a structured education degree in film to like get into the film industry?
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't come from a traditional filmmaking background either. I mean, journalism is very different from filmmaking because in journalism you don't you're not watching movies, you're not learning like different styles or whatever. But at the same time, for me, the filmmaking was a natural transition because at CNN, for 10 years, I was telling other people's stories, and then I was finally presented with an opportunity to start telling my own stories. And I didn't set out to be a filmmaker at all. It was when I had a poetry fellowship at Pepperdine, and I was talking with my advisor saying how I had a visual background, you know, with CNN, and so that was about videos and then the poetry, and I wanted to somehow integrate it the two. And so she told me, well, why don't you make films out of your poetry? And so that is how the filmmaking started. And then from there, it went on to making the documentaries. So that kind of answer your question? Okay. So it's kind of just do it. Just pick. It can be an iPhone. It can be a simple camera. Just pick it. Yeah, that's the best advice I can give if you want to go into filmmaking is to just do it. So.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.